So, welcome to the Global HR Community Talk Show, Pathfinders. In this exciting segment, we spotlight individuals who are pioneering groundbreaking innovations and movements with their initiatives at the workplace and society. Pathfinders celebrates those who challenge the status quo, inspire innovation, and drive meaningful changes. Join us as we delve into the stories of visionaries who are not just shaping their organizations but also making a significant impact on the world around them. Through the unique paths, we aim to uncover insights, share experiences, and ignite inspiration for a better, more inclusive future. Tune into Pathfinders and embark on a journey of discovery and transformation with us. In today's rapidly evolving professional landscape, inclusion and diversity have become essential pillars for organizational success. Differently enabled individuals, however, often face significant barriers in accessing meaningful employment opportunities. Recognizing this gap, Oorjja has emerged as a beacon of hope, fostering a supportive community where differently abled young minds can thrive. We are privileged to have with us today on our talk show Mr. Jayasankar. Jayasankar, welcome to the show and thank you for being part of this particular talk show. Jay is an accomplished engineer by qualification, a BTech and MTech from the College of Engineering Trivandrum, a seasoned banker by profession. With a remarkable 22 years of corporate experience, including 18 years at the HDFC Bank as a senior vice president, Jay has made a significant impact in the financial sector. In 2017, Jay decided to channel his extensive expertise and passion into social entrepreneurship called Oorjja, dedicated to empowering the differently abled community. As the founder and concept creator of Oorjja, Jay leverages his skills in team and project management to foster a professional ecosystem that supports and uplifts this community. Under his leadership, Oorjja operates as a self-sustainable organization driven by a group of committed professionals. Jay's dedication to this cause was highlighted in his TED Talk, where he elaborated on the ecosystem he has created for the differently enabled community. So Jay today will be talking to us on the topic of empowering the differently abled talent. Jay, as I said before, welcome to this show. And Thanks. I would first start by requesting you to share with us a little bit about Oorjja. What is it that made you to start this, and what is it that this organization represents?
So thank you so much, Ramesh and JHRC, for having me here in this show, and thank you so much for giving this space for Oorjja. In few words, I mean, Oorjja is now 7 years plus, 7 years old baby, I would say. We started this as a model for creating an ecosystem for inclusivity for differently able people. Hitherto, the community would have been looking at differently able people with a sympathetic approach, and then that doesn't help in any way. So we wanted to create a model where the professionals come together. We create a model where it's a collaborative model, look at that untapped base of differently able people, and then bring them into the mainstream. In the last 7 years, we could very proudly say that we've been able to successfully move that in that direction. Not just in the skill building part, we've also been able to build in certain organizations which employs differently able people, or in a way we build in entrepreneurs from the differently able community. It's truly a ecosystem we're getting managed.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the reason we would want to term ourselves as an ecosystem rather than an organization. Currently, there are 7 organizations under Oorjja, which certain organizations look into skill building, certain organizations look at employing people, certain organizations are run as entrepreneurships from the differently able community, where Oorjja is a common factor in all these 7 people. So that's Oorjja in a short and crisp way to you, Ramesh.
So what do you think are some of the core values that drives Oorjja?
Good question. Ramesh, like I said at the beginning, inclusion very often is a misunderstood term, and more of inclusion, it actually gets into exclusion. More and more specialized environments gets created for differently able people, and never the mainstreaming happen. So our core value would have been to create an ecosystem where the inclusion happens in the true sense, not just for the sake of a tick marking. Point number one. Point number two, to build a sustainability. Okay, I mean, if this model has to succeed, all the core stakeholders have to have a sustainable model. Thankfully, over the last 7 years, we've been able to get into that direction. Sustainable for the people who are coming in as getting the benefit, the people who are involved in creating that model, the people who are ultimately going to hire from this. Oorjja as such, all these four people have to have a sustainable model coming in. I would say inclusion and sustenance have been the core driving force for Oorjja. That's the way.
Generally, Jay, I've seen, especially in this part of the world, that many times the society and the people around look at the differently abled people more from a sympathetic point of view. But I have had the opportunity of having employed many of them when I was with Schneider Electric and other companies.
Wow.
And many of them used to tell me, don't look at us from a sympathetic point of view, but look at it from an empathetic point of view, right? We want you to empathize rather than sympathize. You're not doing us a favor by giving us an employment, but actually, if you empathize with us and realize that we are capable of also contributing to the organization and to the society, I think they will feel much better. So I think empathy
You
is
said
also
it. You said it,
very, very
Ramesh.
important when it comes to dealing with the differently abled people. So, Jay, Oorjja addresses a wide range of challenges, including education, skill development, healthcare, and environmental sustainability. Can you give us an overview of some of the most important projects that you have done and which have been very impactful? And maybe share a success story that illustrates the impact of Oorjja that has had on an individual or a community.
Right. I mean, traditionally, if I were to look at, let me take the skill building model itself. Traditionally, if I were to look at, the skill building model happens, in a very, very disconnected manner, I would say. I mean, it is come far away from the reality. We started looking at the whole skill building model from a corporate angle. I mean, if I were to look at from a corporate angle, how would I want this person to have a skill? All being equal, then can I look at the corporate to start hiring these persons? The most important factor we realized that corporate model was, then the supervisor is a very key element, the future supervisor is a very key element when it comes to a skill building model. We went to the corporate, we started convincing the corporate saying that, instead of looking at a traditional hiring model of, test and interview, can we have the supervisor involved into the whole model? Give a little longish window of an internship through a train to hire model. The moment we shifted gears into that model over the last 3-4 years time, the success ratio went far ahead. The inductions were much more smoother. The supervisor knew this person beforehand, before the person was joining into the company. His buy-in was taken, even before the hiring happened. That created a real true sense of inclusion between the supervisor at the corporate, not at the CXO level, the supervisor at the corporate and the trainee. The trainees also were comfortable when they went there because it was not an unknown depth which was there. I would say that was a turning point in our skill building model, I would specifically say. I'll probably add one more point into the thing, Ramesh. Even before COVID, we were on a hybrid model from day one. Okay, the reason why we went for a hybrid model was a completely different reason, but during COVID, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. We were all wondering, the differently able people, how will they communicate with a remote supervisor? If you look at in a tech world, the supervisor doesn't sit at the same location. And I'm a hearing input person, or even if I'm in the next room, over the intercom, I can't connect in. So we wanted to create a hybrid model by using those times Zoom were not that evolved. We still had to use remote mechanisms, and the trainers used to sit in one room and the trainees used to sit in another room. That helped us create a little more inclusive model in a better way using the technology as well.
That was actually the next question I was trying to ask you. Like, how did Oorjja harness the power of technology, or how did you leverage it? One, in terms of training your employees, and second, in terms of communicating and engaging with the differently abled people. Can you share some examples?
Yeah, maybe just taking on from what I said in the last point, hybrid was one model which we have been using from day one. But I think beyond that, our contents were always visually strong. Okay, because we wanted to create a universal content. If you were to look at any content currently available, it is audio-centric contents which you see mostly. We created visually strong contents. For example, we use camcorders, record all the screens, use pop-ups to show how a tool works, what are the kind of options, etc., which created a universal content for the people. And they could practice at the back end, even when the trainers were not there. Point number three, we had maybe 20-25% of the time only the trainers used to be, or the mentors used to be in offices. You look at a traditional corporate model, the supervisor doesn't remain with the mentee all the time. He has to have a lot of self-learning space available. So we created that kind of a model here. Our assessment models were not very, what do you say, artificial. It was automated in the sense, and a lot of inputs were already available in the system, which goes into our assessment model. Proudly, I could say we also created an app, though it is still in the testing stage. We created an app, first time in India, I would say, which converts your language into sign language.
Okay.
So I can speak into that app using any of the 7 to 8 Indian languages, read or write into the language. There's an avatar which comes up and translates into sign language. So all those kind of tools we use so that we could bridge the barrier. Essentially it's about bridging the barrier, and technology paved a lot of help for us for bridging that barrier much more smoothly.
Great, and I think it's absolutely right? The technology today has become an enabler, especially for such people. What is the profile of people that you have when you say differently abled? Can you share with us a little bit about the profile of the people that you're working with?
Yeah, Ramesh, over the last few years, we've changed the terminology from a differently abled into people coming from any challenged background. Okay, the reason why we looked at anybody coming from a challenged background, we always believe anybody coming from a challenged background has got a suppressed energy. And that suppressed energy, if it can be channelized in the positive way, instead of going the rebellism, they can actually get diverted into any of the productive mechanisms. So people coming with hearing impairment, cerebral palsy affected people, physically challenged people, people coming from economically weaker section A. Otherwise, there's no disability per se, what you say, but people coming from economically challenged backgrounds. So we created that kind of an entry system, which created an inclusive environment as such. Because I've got people in the same classroom, I've got people with hearing impairment, cerebral palsy, physical challenge, economically weaker section where I can speak and write also. So the challenge for the trainer was multitude. He had to create a content which is universal for all these people. But the biggest advantage was when this person was coming out of Oorjja, he was ready to face a mainstream community because already he was in an inclusive environment at Oorjja itself. And I had a lot of confidence in the corporate also saying that if they could coexist here, they might as well coexist in my office as well. Instead of coming from a special school environment, can I create at least an inclusion model? So that's what has been the most important point, I would say.
I think that's something unique which I've heard. Right? As you rightly said, I've generally heard about special schools for the differently able people, but having a classroom with people with different abilities in the same classroom and then having instructors guiding them and training them is something unique. And as you rightly said, when they get into the corporate world, they're not going to be challenged or feel out of place because they've already worked with people of different abilities. I think that's a great practice you have started, and it's a great experiment, and I'm very happy that this paid it off for you.
Thanks.
Now, Jay, I just want to ask you, what message would you like to convey to our audience about the importance of empowering communities and creating inclusive solutions?
I would say the most important point could be a sustenance for the stakeholder, because very often, I'm not saying anything against a philanthropic model, but in a philanthropic model, at least one stakeholder, there's a kind of compromise which happens somewhere. That's my personal feeling. But when it comes to a social entrepreneurship kind of a model where the sustenance is a key point, we will sweat it out to ensure that every stakeholder is having a sustenance, so that there's a continuity which happens alongside. Put in a small example, I'm a trainer. How long will I take voluntary classes, if it doesn't add to my breadwinning thing, especially my early ages of my career. You see a lot of people at the towards the last part of the career coming into these kind of social costs for taking sessions and not. Today, I've got a lot of youngsters coming and doing it because I ensure that they're paid at the same market rate which they are at. So then it requires a revenue flow which has to come in, and I create a corporate model here, so that without a fee model, we are able to sustain it. That's point number one. Second, I would say the real larger message I would want to give in a social enterprise. You are in a situation where you've got a raw material which is plenty.
Absolutely.
And the product doesn't have any need at the market. If I go to a corporate today, there's no real need for him to hire from a differently able person. All right. So I have to go to him and then convince why he should do it, not because of sympathy. Can I show him the portfolio? Can I show him the work output? And say, he's as good or better than your lateral hires. I mean, can you then look at all being equal? So that's a real challenge. How do I market a product which doesn't have a need? In social enterprise, all products, I think that's a larger challenge to me.
My next question I should ask is on the value chain that you offer to the customers. Generally, people have a perception that when you deal with people with different abilities or challenged, as you said, generally they offer only at the lower end of the value chain. So, in your organization, what do you think has been your experience in terms of where do you think these people could be utilized, or as you rightly said, the potential could be harnessed at the value chain at the bottom of the pyramid, or is it they can scale up to right up to the top? What's your experience, or what do you think it is?
Yeah, our experience having done, they are one of the most trainable resources I've ever seen, because I've worked in a corporate environment earlier and had multiple people reporting in various levels at that stage. I've seen them to be much more trainable than people come from the mainstream, for the simple reason that they come from the surplus energy background, right? It's all about you as a supervisor, how to channelize that energy into things. Point number one. Point number two, and this is a famous story which I keep saying, if I'm a right-hander, why is that my right hand is very strong? Simple, because I keep using the right hand. So if I'm a hearing impaired person, my vision is very strong for the simple reason that I keep using that much beyond what you use. So if I can move to jobs which requires my visual power to be strong, I will be much better off than you. For example, when we moved into data sciences, we started teaching data analytics here, UI, UX, etc. over the last 3 years. The initial years, a lot of trainers used to come and discourage us, saying that they will never be able to. But I can very confidently share some of the work outputs they have done in Python or in a Power BI or in a UI UX using Figma tools. Their visual strength is much better than they're able to deliver things much faster or better than you. They don't have the exposure that what you and I have. Just imagine 20, 25 years. 20 years they would have been in special school environments. They didn't get the exposure what you and I had. So don't compare them to the same levels. If you can replace that with the kind of exposure at the corporate level, believe me, they can compete much faster than the rest of the people. So what they currently lack is the communication ability and the exposure, nothing else. Nothing else is what we have seen.
Have you heard about Shrikant Bola?
Yes. We have taken everybody for the movie also, and it was an exciting. We took everybody there and just relate to what we want to.
So he has proved it that if you're physically challenged, and he was visually challenged, and he went against all odds, and then took science, took engineering, passed out of IIT Madras, went to MIT, challenged governments, got institutions' policies changed, and he passed out of MIT in flying colors, and then he has set up his own business. So the perception that visually or physically or differently enabled people can only work at the bottom end of the pyramid in terms of value chain, I think he has proved it wrong. And as you rightly said, if you are giving them the right exposure and if you can reassure faith in them that they can do it and give them the environment and support, I think they can do as well as any other human being. And that's a great.
You said it, Ramesh. It's an untapped talent pool, to be very frank. All of us have been staying away from that talent pool for various reasons. We are trying to bridge in to see that and give that confidence to the stakeholders, saying that, no, can you look at it slightly differently?
Jay, what are some of the key learnings that has emerged from your Oorjja's journey that you believe are crucial for other social entrepreneurs and organizations that they can learn from your experience?
One is, the S is not always an S. I've seen that, when it comes to these kind of initiatives, when I go to corporate, it's very difficult for them to say no to me on a face, because, they feel like, they are shying away from this responsibility, but they also don't want to buy into this. So that S is a difficult S. You'll have to understand where is the no coming in. Point number one. Point number two, I would say, the real challenge is about convincing the stakeholder, convincing the stakeholder to experience this. Say that so what we created to do that is it's like any other product saying a free looking period. In the sense we said, okay, don't commit yourself into this product. I mean, I'm using that terminologies of a management jargon. Sorry to do that. I said, no, you have a train to hire model where you experience this person for a few months or whatever time period you want, whichever designation. have full faith in him, and if you're not happy, we take back. And I still do that. And I'm very proud to say that currently the acceptance ratio is close as 90-95%. If 10 people go to a corporate, at least 90-95. I mean, yesterday we got a sign up, with 100% getting absorbed. So, which means that look-in period is actually giving the confidence to the stakeholder, saying that yeah, they are actually better than some of the other guys. So to me, that is the way. That is the way to create that confidence. Is what I feel like.
Something like an internship model.
Correct. Exactly. And we leave the terminology to the corporate to decide, but we don't allow any person to join with a test and interview model, and we refuse that because we know that will fail. Even if the corporate is pushing us, we politely refuse and we say that no, we would only want to look at a train to hire model, and then don't look at anything else.
Have you tried, rather than deploying people on site, supporting from a back end from a remote place? What is your model like? How many of them work on site? How many of them work remotely?
Yeah.
Which do you think is better?
Yeah. Ramesh, COVID was a challenging period for us. I mean, the work from home scenario started up, and we didn't have an option at that time. We had to move people into only a work from home or a work from remote. They had technology issues at home, connectivity issues at home. We created a space at Oorjja for them to come here and sit and work from here instead of work from home. Our experience have been that that doesn't. Why did I create this model? I want to create them exposures for them. A work from home, a remote environment doesn't give them the exposure which is required for them for the growth which is required. So currently, I politely refuse any such offers coming saying that no. In fact, there's a corporate which is signed up, and they were surprised when I said that no, we wanted 100% work from office, and they're now creating a model for them exclusively so that they can get the exposure to office. To me, that is a real challenge. Not about the convenience or anything else. They don't get the exposure what they get from the office, and I wanted to create that exposure for them. Most of them, Ramesh, would not have gone through a college model also. They haven't seen a campus. They have only seen the four walls of a school, and they come to me at the age of 20, 23, 24. At least now I want to give that exposure so the career is assured for them.
Okay, what I meant was not necessarily work from home, like a BPO, you set up an office and then you have them in your campus and then they support the customers remotely. In that context, I asked you.
Yeah. I mean, there have been thoughts going on, Ramesh. We've been creating a model parallelly around that. I mean, in a small way, we've been doing that. Like I said, now out of the 7-8 organizations where Oorjja is part of, only 3 are skill building models. Rest of our entrepreneurship models which we are doing it slowly. We believe in scaling up, very, very slowly and cautiously. It took 7 years for me to even come and speak to you like this. So we wanted to ensure that it's run in a sustainable model way.
Because I used to be involved with a company called Vindhya Infotech. I'm sure
you know. Bangalore.
They are one of the largest IT processing organization using physically challenged people. I think today, when they started rather, we were one of the major employees, and there were about 30 people. And today, I believe they are somewhere close to about 3,000 to 4,000 people whom they employed. Right. So they largely do it on a BPO model. They have a big processing organization. Few of them, of course, they do send them on site, but they've been doing successfully for the last 10 years in this regard.
See, we also do in a small way. Today, for example, we do the bookkeeping and taxation filing for 500 US companies back in the Oorjja.
Right.
So we're doing it in a small way, but not in a large way to announce outside, but in a very small way. We've been.
No, why I suggested this was because you said there were some reservations of some corporates when you were saying that sending them on site. Do you think they can really work and they really mingle with the rest of the crowd?
Correct.
So that situation, maybe you could look at a remote back-end office supporting these conferences.
For sure.
Now, last question to you, Jay. You have transitioned from a successful banking career. You've been at the highest position in the bank. What made you, shift your career from, say, a professional career to becoming a social entrepreneur? And what advice will you give to professionals who are considering a shift from corporate into the social sector? What did you first try or think about it, and then what advice would you give?
Yeah, just first question first. I mean, I've said this in multiple forums earlier, even the TEDx talk, that's the way I started that as well. My younger brother is differently able. And 20 years back, when he completed a software engineering, we were thinking that he'll get placed very fast. And it wasn't an easy journey. It was a big struggle. I went and met a lot of people saying that he's hearing impaired. Nobody was willing to give a job. He started in a small way. But after he getting the job, that person called back and told me, saying, why did you tell me he's hearing impaired? He's a very good designer. That tilted the whole thought process, saying that I should have been speaking about his ability rather than his disability. Correct. Those days, I didn't have the courage. 20 years hence, I took a oath at that time. So whenever I get a courage, I'll start something like this. That was a real tickling point. But when I started 7 years back, Oorjja, I was not expecting this to scale up to this level now. I was thinking about maybe doing a few trainees every year and then do a placement. That's all I had in my mind. But after seeing the depth of the issue, I thought of, creating a model around that. And I should thank my team. I've got around 50-55 people as part of the Oorjja ecosystem as a full-time, part-time employees. They are the ones who created this model along with me. Now to the advice. The second question, the advice to people who would want to move from a corporate to a entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship in particular. I would say, Ramesh, if you were to wake up on a Sunday, what is your motivation to wake up on a Sunday? You have a very settled 6 days, and then it's up to you to decide when do you want and what time. I was a late person to wake up, and I woke up at the age of 45. I relate to that. Once you wake up, then it drives you, because especially when you have a good career in corporate, it won't be the financial things which will be driving you. It will be something else which will be driving you. It's for you to understand what is that driving force. Then I think you will get purpose. The only challenge is to wake up. You wake up on a Sunday, 6 a.m., 5 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 a.m., 12 noon. That's a point. That's a tough point.
And make a difference not only to you, to the individual, and to the society.
Right. Need not be financial factors at that time which is pulling you.
So great, Jay. As we come to the end of this enlightening talk show, we've had the privilege of hearing about the remarkable work of Oorjja is doing to empower differently abled individuals. Their commitment to bridging the skills gap and fostering a supportive community for people with special needs is truly inspiring. We hope that today's discussions has shed light on the importance of inclusion and diversity at the workplace and the incredible potential that can be unlocked when we provide the right opportunities and support. Oorjja's vision of creating a more inclusive and equitable workplace serves as a powerful reminder that everyone deserves a chance to shine and contribute meaningfully to the society. Thank you, Jay, for sharing your insights and experience. And thank you for you and your organization doing yeoman service to a special community which is largely neglected by the society, by the corporates, and by the government. To our GHRC members, let us carry forward the lessons we have learned today and continue to advocate for a world where differently abled individuals are not just included, but celebrated for their unique talents and contributions. I once again want to reiterate, let us look at them from an empathetic point of view and not look at it from a sympathetic point of view. Together, we can make a difference. Thank you, Jay, and others for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all in our next talk show. Thank you.
Good information. Thank you, Jayasankar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.